History is usually written by the winners, but there is a persistent theory that it was actually written by a small group of individuals who decided to invent 300 years of thin air. In 1991, German historian Heribert Illig proposed the phantom time hypothesis. The core claim is that the years between 614 and 911 AD never actually occurred. If this calculation is correct, the current year is not 2026. Mathematically, the world is currently residing in the early 1700s. Every event, war, and figure from the early Middle Ages is argued to be an elaborate, coordinated fiction designed to fill a massive hole in the human timeline. The primary motive for this deception centers on the year 1000 AD. In the medieval consciousness, the millennium was the ultimate milestone of divine authority. Ruling during the year 1000 provided a prestige that surpassed any military victory. It turned a mortal leader into a legendary figure, destined by God to lead humanity into a new age of the world. The theory suggests three powerful men orchestrated this shift: Holy Roman Emperor Otto III, Pope Sylvester II, and the Byzantine Emperor Constantine VII. Otto was a young, ambitious ruler who desperately wanted to be known as the Millennium Emperor, but the calendars of his time placed him in the late 700s. He was centuries too early for his own destiny. To bridge this gap, these men allegedly forged hundreds of documents and backdated them to create a seamless, albeit fake, history. They took the timeline of human history, cut it open, and stuffed 297 years of phantom time into the wound. This period includes the entirety of the Carolingian dynasty. This means that Charlemagne, the famous father of Europe, who supposedly united the continent, was not a real person. According to Illig, Charlemagne is a composite character, a fictional superhero created by medieval scribes to make the fake centuries look busy and productive. Illig points to the startling lack of archaeological proof during this era. In Europe, excavations routinely uncover massive amounts of Roman artifacts from the year 400. Excavations also find a wealth of high medieval artifacts from the year 1100. However, the period in between, the supposed Dark Ages, is remarkably empty. There is a strange lack of progress in architecture. Buildings from the year 600 look identical to buildings from the year 900, as if masonry and engineering technology simply stood still for 3 centuries. There is no evolution in ceramics, no changes in agricultural tools, and almost no reliable contemporary records that haven't been called into question as forgeries. Even the city of Constantinople has a gap in its urban development that matches this timeline perfectly. For 300 years, one of the greatest empires in history supposedly stopped building, stopped writing new laws, and stopped evolving its currency. It appears as if the world simply went into a state of suspended animation. Proponents of the theory argue that this isn't because history was dark or slow, but because those 300 years were a ghost story told by people with the power to rewrite the books. The strongest argument for phantom time is not found in a dusty forgery, but in the rigid world of mathematics and astronomy. The foundation of the theory rests on the transition between two calendars, the Julian and the Gregorian. In the era of Julius Caesar, the Roman Empire established the Julian calendar. It was a masterpiece of ancient engineering, but it contained a small, lingering flaw. It was off by approximately 11 minutes every year. While 11 minutes sounds insignificant, over the course of centuries, those minutes accumulate into hours, and those hours eventually turn into days. By the year 1582, the calendar was drastically out of sync with the actual seasons of the Earth. Farmers were attempting to plant crops at the wrong times because the calendar dates no longer aligned with the position of the sun. The spring equinox was drifting further away from its traditional date in March. Pope Gregory XIII introduced the Gregorian calendar to fix this drift. To realign the dates with the stars and the seasons, he had to skip specific days to reset the clock. Based on the math provided by his astronomers, the Pope determined that the world needed to skip exactly 10 days. Heribert Illig used this specific correction as his smoking gun. He calculated the error rate of the old Roman calendar and claimed that after 1,627 years of the Julian system, the error should have accumulated to 13 days, not 10. In the world of calendar mathematics, a 3-day discrepancy is not a minor rounding error. 3 days of missing error is the mathematical equivalent of roughly 300 years of time. Illig argued that the only reason the Pope's 10-day correction worked perfectly was because the missing 300 years never actually passed. The calendar wasn't as broken as it should have been because the timeline was shorter than the history books claimed. However, modern science has provided a formidable defense of the traditional timeline. The primary rebuttal is that Pope Gregory was not attempting to fix the calendar all the way back to Caesar's time in 45 BC. The Church was specifically interested in resetting the calendar to the Council of Nicaea in 325 AD, which is when the rules for calculating Easter were established. When you calculate the error from 325 AD to 1582 AD, the 10-day correction is mathematically perfect. The final contradiction to the phantom time hypothesis comes from the sky itself. Throughout history, ancient civilizations were obsessed with the stars. Astronomers in Tang Dynasty China and observers in the Middle East recorded specific solar eclipses and the precise passing of Halley's comet during the exact years Illig claims were fabricated. If 300 years had been erased or added, the orbital mechanics of the solar system would not align with these ancient records. We can use modern computers to rewind the sky, and when we do, the eclipses recorded in the year 700 happen exactly when the ancient texts say they did. Even though the theory is scientifically impossible, it reveals a profound truth about our relationship with history. It proves that our understanding of the past is not built on a foundation of solid stone, but on a narrative that we choose to believe. The mystery of phantom time serves as a reminder that the most effective way to hide a secret is to bake it directly into the way we measure time itself.